for those of you that are obviously viewing this, here's the audio information. I know we've had a couple people type that into our discussion area. So as you can see, the slides are up on the screen, and audio is broadcast through the phone, and a call-in number was provided. Another thing to note is that the recording of the audio and the slides will be sent to you via email following the webinar. We'll have those in the next couple of days, and it will sync as the entire webinar. Also, you'll notice to the left of your screen that there's a box that says Discussion Area. We'll be using this to communicate with you throughout the webinar, so if you do have any questions for presenters or any problems with the audio, anything like that, feel free to let us know. We do have 3 different presenters with us today, and so we'll be introducing them to you shortly. And if you do have questions that you would like to direct to a specific presenter, if you can please just note that in the discussion box, maybe just type their name or something like that so we know where to direct the questions. We'll be getting to those at the end of the presentation. For now, I'm going to turn this over to Judy Wertheim.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Tracy. I would like to welcome you all to this webinar, Facilitating the Educational Goals of Active Duty Military and Veterans. And we're delighted to have with us 3 presenters today. We have Cindy Wilson-Porter, who will be presenting. We also have Sarah Appel, who will be presenting, and Joseph Welsh, who will be presenting. And I'd like to take some time now to introduce you to those 3 presenters and tell you a little bit about them. Because this webinar only lasts for an hour, unfortunately, I don't have time to tell you all that I can tell you about them. But I would like to tell you why they are particularly appropriate for this webinar. Dr. Cindy Wilson-Porter currently is the Vice President of Extended Academic Programs at the University of the Incarnate Word. And I would like to try to get to, whoops, there she is. My finger is too heavy. Just a minute, please. There she is. She is the Vice President, as I said, for Extended Academic Programs at the University of Incarnate Word. And in her role there, she oversees the School of Extended Studies, which deals with the Adult Evening Program, Universe Online, all active duty military and veterans who are students for at the entire university. She also deals with 2 high schools, which are owned and managed by the university. Under her guidance, the university became one of the first schools to take part in something we all know about, I'm sure, the U.S. Army's earmyu.com program for enlisted personnel. Dr. Wilson-Porter was selected as a member of the Go Army Ed Advisory Committee, serving as the chair of the subcommittee on schools. And currently, she serves as a member of the Service Members Opportunity College's Army Advisory Committee, which makes suggestions for the future of Army education. Let's go to the next slide with pictures so you can see who I'm talking about. Sarah Appel is currently an outreach specialist for Operation Diploma. Operation Diploma is an initiative of the Military Family Research Institute, which is housed at Purdue University. And in that position, her responsibilities include helping to acclimate, craft, and distribute education programs to aid in the achievement of higher education institutions, matriculation, and retention of students who are affiliated with branches of the military. Sarah has had an enormous amount of experience with student support services, working with first-generation low-income minority students, as well as students with disabilities, non-traditional, and adult learners. Our final presenter will be Joseph Welsh, who is the CEO of the Collegiate Consortium for Workforce and Economic Development. He's going to tell you a lot about the consortium. So briefly, what I would like to say is that he has had much experience dealing with biotechnology associations and departments of labor in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. And with them, he has worked to obtain funding from the U.S. Department of Labor. He also obtained $2.3 million of funding from the Department of Defense to develop a career education and training initiative to support Reserve and National Guard members from the Delaware Valley. These are National Guard members who served in active duty in support of Operation Enduring Freedom and or Operation Iraqi Freedom. And as you can see, all of our presenters are certainly well qualified to talk to you about helping active military personnel and veterans achieve their goals. One of the reasons that CALE is particularly interested in these projects is that currently we have received support from the McCormick Foundation to research educational advising and career planning services for military veterans in the Chicagoland area. After we do this, which will involve a survey of all of the post-secondary institutions to identify the services they provide, we hope to create a customized toolkit to help institutions work with military personnel who are students. We also, as many of you know, have just launched learningcounts.org, which is an online prior learning assessment program. We're doing this in cooperation with ACE and the College Board, and one of our target audiences are active duty military personnel and veterans. And just a quick plug, we are still accepting institutions to participate in the pilot phase, and if you'd like to do that, please contact me. And finally, for all CALE members, we are in the process, as we speak, of publishing a special CALE Forum and News issue that will address matters related to how institutions are serving active military personnel and veterans. And now I would like to turn this over to Cindy Wilson-Porter, and Dr. Wilson-Porter will talk to us about Boots to Books. Cindy?
Thank you, Judy. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to have been asked to speak with you. I think it's really important for all of us in higher education to share best practices. And the University of the Incarnate Word definitely has some best practices that we can share about our military members. I'd like to talk a little bit first and very briefly about the University of the Incarnate Word. It's a private liberal arts institution in Texas. We're currently the 4th largest private in Texas. We were founded by the Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word, or a Catholic institution, obviously, in 1881. Now, what's notable about the way that we're set up and structured here at the university is that we have 2 pretty distinct divisions. All right, the first division is the main campus and our international programs. They're targeted at a traditional population. Now, I know we can all say what's traditional anymore. 18 to 21 isn't necessarily the traditional population. We are getting a little bit older. But this is targeted very much at students who wish to have a traditional college experience. All right, the second division is the division that I represent, and that's the Division of Extended Academic Programs here at the university. As Judy told you, that's composed of the adult evening program. We call that ADCAP. All right. The virtual university, which has been known as Universe Online. And the third piece that Judy talked about is the high schools. We have 2 land-based high schools, but just this past August, we started something called UIW Preparatory, which is an online preparatory high school. And as we move forward with that, we're actually going to be doing a bilingual Spanish-speaking high school. So it's a very exciting place to be. All right. Talking about our military populations, the military programs and populations here at the university are really important, right? They've been important almost since the beginning of the university. If you were to, for example, ask an Army nurse if they know about Incarnate Word, almost every single one of them will say absolutely, right? University of the Incarnate Word Nursing School has been educating our Army nurses for a long, long time, right? We now serve both a local, national, and international audience, particularly through the Universe Online, our virtual university. As Judy told you, we're a founding school in eArmyU, and for those of you who know about eArmyU, it was a very exciting and progressive program that the Army started back in 2000, the fall of 2000. What's really exciting for me is that corresponds with the start of the virtual university here at the University of the Incarnate Word. I went to that first meeting in Washington, D.C., where Louis Caldera announced that the Army was going to become a big player in distance education, and I was one of those, I'll be honest enough to admit, that kind of laughed and said, sure you are. But now we all know that the Army was right and I wasn't necessarily. Right? Because of the success of eArmyU, the Army turned all of its tuition assistance and advisory services over and now call it Go Army Ed. You can see that the boards that we serve on and continue to serve on, we're also members of a program for the United States Air Force called AUABC. All right, it's the Air University Associate to Baccalaureate Cooperative, where students will be able to will do their work with the community college at the Air Force, and when they're done, they will finish off with the University of the Incarnate Word along with some other schools to get their degree. And then finally, NCP-DLP, and I always mess this up, it's the Navy College Partners Distance Learning Partnership, which I think is really interesting. The military has some really cool acronyms that they put together for just about everything. So, extended academic programs. Let me talk a little bit more about that because it's definitely part of the reason why we're really successful in what we do. Right? Extended academic programs is degree granting. What that means is a lot of schools have extended programs and adult programs, but what their adult programs do is they actually deliver degree programs for the main campus. In other words, they're delivery systems. What that means to an adult program and a military-rich program is that you're being controlled by your main campus, and sometimes the degree program offerings don't have a lot of coherence or transferability for a military population. The university has structured us so that that's not true. Right? We maintain control of our curriculum, right, and able to make changes in our curriculum. What that allows us to be, and the second point, is very entrepreneurial. Right? We can look at changing things within the military population, within corporate populations, and we're able to respond very rapidly. Right? The third thing about EAP, as we like to call it, extended academic programs, is we have really discounted our tuition to the adult populations. Right? The adult populations typically don't want to take part in a lot of your services on main campus. Right? Being able to go to main campus and attend a student function typically isn't real high on their list of priorities. They want to be able to get their education, take care of their families, and be able to improve in their working life. So because of that, when we started these programs, to discount that tuition. Another way of looking at the needs of an adult learner is to adapt your programs, and because of that, in EAP we have accelerated terms. They are 8 weeks in length, and they run, depending upon the program, either 6 terms a year or 5 terms a year. And then also we're very flexible. Extended academic programs offers their online programs asynchronously. You don't have to be there at the same time or on a particular day to do your work. We offer our adult programs in the evenings, on Saturdays, and starting in the fall semester, we'll be doing them during the day as well in those accelerated 8-week terms. So how are we different? Because a lot of people have many of the things I just talked about in their adult programs. How we're different when we deal with the military is we have no out-of-pocket for any active duty service member in either undergraduate or graduate programs. Now, what that means is we stay at CAP, right? CAP is for a military member. They get tuition assistance for $4,500 a year. They get to spend it as $250 a credit hour and no more for an individual course. So we maintain our tuition for both our undergraduate and our graduate at that $250 a credit hour per individual credit hour and course. That means, obviously, that our discount is even sharper for the military. We offer free textbooks for our military members. Those free textbooks are probably about 80% in the form of ebooks, but we give those ebooks to both undergraduates and graduates, which are already in a sharply discounted tuition situation. For our military members, we assess no academic or programmatic fees, and we have dedicated advisors that are focused totally on the military and totally on the needs of our veterans population. Right. Having done all of this, we still see that there are some distinct needs that our military population has that we're not necessarily meeting. And when I say military, military means active duty, and it also means veterans. A lot of times we talk about veterans as though they're not the same as an active duty member or vice versa. But once somebody serves in the military, they're all veterans. Right? So when you look at our population composed of those two populations for the military members, we saw some distinct holes in what we were doing and what other people in the United States and here locally were not doing and not doing. The first of those is the Center for Veterans Affairs. I'll talk about each of these individually. Secondly, Project Persist. The third thing we're working on is an Institute for Business Development. And finally, the UIW Center for Excellence for Veterans Education. The first one there, the Center of Veterans Affairs, right, is something that we realized we weren't doing as well as we could be doing here at the university. Sure, we were doing a lot of cool stuff for our veterans, but one of the things when folks are returning from combat is that they need to be able to have a community environment. They need to be able to get together. Right? They need to be able to talk to one another. All right? There are some things about a veteran that's coming back that is really different from another student. They have some issues with counseling. We've all heard about PTSD. Well, that's very real when you're talking about a student acclimatizing themselves back into an environment of academics, having just come from a war situation. So what we did was we took the time and we dedicated a space for our veterans population, which we called the Center for Veterans Affairs. The Center for Veterans Affairs is really a holistic advising place, which has a one-stop shop, meaning that students are not going to have to go to the registrar's office on main campus, and then when they find out something's wrong with their bill, they have to run back there. What we do is we take care of all of their needs in that one central location. Right? If someone has a registrar issue, we take care of it here. And if there's a business office issue, we take care of it here. And if they're having issues with financial aid, with their veterans affairs, with any of the different VA funding opportunities, we take care of it here for them. Right? In addition to all those services, we have meeting space that is dedicated for the veterans population. They can come in and just kind of visit. They get to use computer, printers, fax, all the different forms that they have needs for, we take care of in that space. Right? We have a coordinator that mans that center, and we have dedicated advisors who are in themselves veterans, and they understand what it's going to take to be able to help that service member get back into the swing of things in an educational institution. And finally, we do have counseling services, and those counseling services not only are extended to the individual service personnel, they're extended to the various different programs here in the university. Right? Teachers need to understand what PTSD is and what things may happen in their classroom and how they can diffuse them. Right? Other administrators have to understand what goes on with the veteran and what they can do to help them have a good experience. And so our veterans coordinator spends a lot of time working with the various populations here on campus to help them understand how to better serve the veterans. Project Persist is centered around adult student persistence. Right? When you look at the adult students, they drop out in really higher rates than the rest of the population. Right? When you look at the military members, even higher rates yet. Right? When you look at that, why does it take them longer to finish a degree? Why do they actually drop out? Studies indicate that, yes, there are family and their work issues that are going to come to be the most important in their lives, and that school is going to take a back step. Right? Another really large problem when you're talking about adult student persistence is weak academic and study skills. Right? If you've been out of school and you've been serving in the military, or you've been working and raising a family, right, it may have been a long time since you've been in school, not really remembering how to study, how to spend time and set time aside to get things done. And then finally, funding issues really get in the way of students persisting and actually increasing graduation rate. Now, what do I mean by that? We're in South Texas, and we see, and I'm sure this is true in other parts of the population, but we see a real resistance to using financial aid. Right? They're very wary of taking on additional debt. Now, it's fine for all of us to say, well, we got advanced degrees because we use financial aid. But with the populations that we deal with, that's really difficult, and we need to do some real financial counseling to help them understand what they need to do and why going ahead and taking a taking financial aid from the government is going to help them get their degree faster, which is going to help them start earning more money sooner, which in the long run is really going to benefit them. In order to deal with adult student persistence and increase the graduation rate and all these things I just talked about, we've developed a new project, which we're calling Project Persist. All right, the name is kind of obvious, I guess, but what this is meant to do is it's meant to take students who are starting college work, right, and put them in an 8-week-long session to help them prepare for school. All right, that 8-week-long session is going to be totally free. All right, that means that students will start with us without not only any out-of-pocket, but no need for tuition assistance at that point. When they're in the class, the first thing that we'll be doing with them is assessing their math and their English skills. Right? It'll be a, it'll actually prepare them to go back to school. For people, when we assess those skills, that we find those skill sets are lower than they should be, they'll be enrolled in another second 8-week course, again, it will be entirely free, right, that'll help them bring their math and their English skills where they need to be able to be successful in college. Right? The second thing we'll do in that first 8-week course is we're going to start teaching people how to study. All right, how to get back into the swing of things, how to prioritize when you're reading, how to take notes, all those things that you need to be able to do to be successful will be part of Project Persist. Then the third thing that we'll be doing is we'll be talking about balancing the need for financial assistance and completing the degree sooner. All right, the U.S. News and World Report a couple years ago said that if when someone gets their bachelor's degree, they will make $25,000 a year more on average across the United States. Students need to understand that financial aid from the government is a great assistance to getting where they need to go, and then investing in yourself is really, really important. The third piece of this is something that's still in the planning stages, but that's the Institute for Business Development. The Institute for Business Development is totally meant to help veterans want to start their own business. Right? Starting your own business means you need to have some basic skill sets that you have competency in. And in order to do that, students will be able to take some courses which will help them as they set up their business. Things like writing a business plan, designing a website, looking at e-commerce, writing for business, how to handle taxes. All of those are things that someone who wants to have a small business needs to really explore. And then finally, before I run out of time, we hope that UIW will become a center of excellence for the city of San Antonio, and not only the city of San Antonio, but for the U.S. What we'll be doing is we'll be putting together a comprehensive website. We have a website now that is dedicated for our active duty military and one that's also dedicated for veterans. But what we'd like to do is make that much more comprehensive. Instead of it being a static website, we want to be able to have it be very, very alive, have document sharing, common forms that a veteran or another school, for example, or somebody here in the city of San Antonio or somebody in another city would be able to actually use those online. We'll have a blog for VA issues, live chat with advisors, discussion boards for different topics, a variety of different ways which we can help other schools, our own students, and the city of San Antonio reach out to the veterans population. I'd like to turn this over now to Sarah.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be here as part of CALE's invitation to participate in today's webinar. We're going to be talking about some of the academic success of student service members and veterans that we found here in Indiana. Simple overview, we'll talk about our strategic initiatives of our Operation Diploma program, grant institutions that we work with, promising practices, and what are some of the future directions that we're looking at. Operation Diploma has 4 strategic initiatives. We want to educate institutions about the attributes and concerns of student service members and veterans, and that includes their family members as well. Engage institutions in strengthening support and services for these students. Strengthen the efforts of student veterans organizations across the state, and of course to generate new knowledge about the experiences of the student veterans and the effective strategies for helping them obtain their college degrees. Here's a map of Indiana, and as you can see, MFRI Operation Diploma covers all regions of the state. Of the 75 eligible Indiana schools, more than 75% of the colleges and universities have been touched by awards totaling more than $1.4 million, or with other resources. And other resources would be presentations, professional development workshops that we invite our affiliate schools to. We found in our 2009-2010 report from our grant institutions that the median enrollment of student service members and veterans at all of our award schools increased by at least 39.47%. And I would like to think that it's because of our wonderful supportive programs that we have on our campuses, but at the same time, the new post-9/11 GI Bill rolled out as well. But again, I'm kind of prejudiced, and I would like to think that it was our supportive programs. Operation Diploma has provided evidence-based guidance to institutional assessments, policies, programs, and practices for the student service members and veterans. Some of the promising practices that we've discovered are to, I guess the first one is definitely we want folks to identify and track students. But numbers don't tell the whole story, but they can help you. They can demonstrate that your great work has gone on, and it can be demonstrated to the campus leadership. It can capitalize on your investment in student service members and veterans, establish evidence to leverage for more funding to show that, we have X amount of student veterans, so we need more funding to serve them, and continue to learn about what is working and where to cut your losses. More than $39,000 has been awarded to student veterans organizations, or SVOs. SVOs are making a huge difference in the state of Indiana. There's been a 300% increase in the number of Indiana student veteran organizations between 2009 and 2010. That's a huge number. But Indiana has a lot of student service members and veterans. I believe it's around approximately 76,000 service members from Indiana have served in OIF and OEF or are currently deployed. So that's a large number for us. The top quartile of schools who increased enrollment had one thing in common. They held awareness trainings or professional development opportunities for faculty and staff. So they did trainings on understanding the military student. They had trainings on traumatic brain injury and those kinds of things, so that they're educating themselves on how to work with our students once they come back. And like every good program, we have dreams. Of the 75 eligible Indiana schools, 56 or 75% of the schools are awardees or affiliates. 100% have been invited to statewide meetings. They've received resources or otherwise been touched by MFRI. 45 or 60% are members of Service Members Opportunity Colleges, and we work very closely with SOC quite a bit on some of our programs and initiatives here at Operation Diploma. 52 or 69% have highly visible points of contact and web pages for student service members and veterans. 47 or 63% give specific credit for military training and experience, and we're really happy about that. Many have implemented successful programs, transition, support, and they're enacting and enforcing supportive campus policies, specifically looking at what to do when a student has to deploy, when they want to re-enroll after they return, those kinds of policies. And all of our institutions, along with many others, including community groups, are engaging in dialogue about promising practices. So we're definitely focusing on higher education, but we also look at the community because we feel that the community is an important piece, too, in retention and higher education. You can contact us at Operation Diploma, and there is our web address and our telephone number. And I'd really like to thank some very special people who helped make Operation Diploma what it is. The Lilly Endowment and Shelley McDermott Wadsworth, who is the director of MFRI, Stacy Hitt, who is the director of Operation Diploma, and Ashley Matthew, who is our associate, who is recently separated from the Navy, so I wanted to thank them. And I guess my final thoughts are that there are a lot of good working models for student service members and veterans and their families out in higher education. And we just need to make sure that we look at those and we put our energies into mirroring those activities or tweaking them to fit our own individual institutional needs. And it's not a one-size-fits-all. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate what you had to tell us about Operation Diploma, Sarah. And now I would like to call on Joseph Welsh, who's going to talk about a program that he works with the Collegiate Consortium.
Thank you very much, and I do appreciate the opportunity to share our program with the group. And hopefully this will help you in some way in your own communities. And the Collegiate Consortium, if I can start with, so you understand who we are, is an organization that was designed around a base realignment and closure 16 years ago here in the Philadelphia area. The organization is really a consortium of 5 community colleges representing community colleges in southern New Jersey and southeastern Pennsylvania. So we represent colleges in a particular labor pool that used to be the labor pool attraction for the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. And it's a pretty solid labor pool with a commuting workforce that pretty much is generally constrained to that area. But it's our 5 community colleges and Drexel University, and Drexel has been a member for all 16 years. And we are now located in the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, and I'll tell you a little more about that down as we move on. Our job here is to coordinate and manage the delivery of training to industry and to support large regional initiatives like this Veterans Initiative we're going to talk about shortly. As that, we manage a number of state and federal funding initiatives from, and then the alphabet soup comes, the Department of Labor, Department of Energy, Commerce, and the Pennsylvania and New Jersey Departments of Labor and Industry. We've also worked with a number of large regional initiatives to reach out to a 3- and 5-state area. One of our current activities is an initiative called the Greater Philadelphia Innovation Cluster, which is a national energy center that's being established here in the Navy Yard. And the consortium represents all of our colleges as a member of that organization as we see research, development, commercialization, and the distribution of technologies for energy management in the region. And our role, of course, is to work on the human capital infrastructure for that initiative with a number of other partners. But that's the consortium, and that's an example of kind of the work that we do and what we represent. Our Veterans Initiative really is now about 3.5 years old. It was a multi-year program limited to assist veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. That was the terms of our agreement with the Department of Defense. And just as a matter of course, for those who work with DOD or other agencies, the grant is actually managed through the Economic Development Agency of the Department of Commerce. The first step was to try to create what we refer to as a veterans-friendly campuses. And my colleagues today have described the veterans-friendly campuses at a very high level, and I really appreciate their review and can add very little to what they've said. They've really done a wonderful job. But what we did in our area was first we pulled together a stakeholders group, which included veterans representatives from all of our campuses, and deans. We wanted to see leadership represented, but also stakeholders from the public workforce system, Department of Labor, Department of Veterans Affairs, and also voluntary veteran service organizations. We have the Veterans Multi-Service Center, and there are a litany of other organizations in the region. We asked them to join us because we knew we were going to need their help reaching out and finding veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. And a little more on that later, but the outreach has been problematic, and it has been a challenge. But we have had some success. This notion of veterans-friendly campus, and I'm going to reiterate this, that the idea that we have a meeting space, that we have veterans groups on campuses, we have computers, we have a single point of contact for veterans on all of our campuses so that we make sure they get prior learning assessment for their military training, so that we recognize other college credits they've earned online or through various academic programs through the military. And that that the student groups get supported with some staff. And on our campuses, we have counselors and other support personnel to help them. And so we use this funding really to strengthen all of those resources on campus, and also to create a single point of contact in our office for a regional communication program to make sure people can tap into our college campuses and our university to get assistance. The initial phase of our program, we tried to look at what was the initial barrier to entry back into a career path, and by that we meant going back and completing or starting or continuing their educational programs. We designed a scholarship program. We found that part of the barrier, as told us by veterans, and as a footnote, we hired an Iraqi veteran to be the spearhead on this program to do the outreach, so that we had someone with relevant experience and background to do the outreach and communicate to the veterans returning. Was to create the scholarship. The barrier was really the administrative burden, and I think we've heard this from the prior speakers, to try to really fast-track them into courses when they were ready to go. And so we created a scholarship pool, and we identified an amount of $3,000 per veteran that we would make available to enroll in either credit or non-credit program. And that was important because we could show great flexibility in program design or responsiveness to the veteran's interest, which we thought was important. And as a comment, to date we have about 600 veterans on scholarship across our campuses here in the greater Philadelphia area. Our outreach was really a challenge. We used our workforce investment boards, which included all of our one-stop centers across the region. We collaborated with the Departments of Veterans Affairs. We did recruiting for veterans on our campuses. We did job and career fairs. And more importantly, we had our veteran employee reach out to all the various veterans groups in the greater Philadelphia area and literally attend meetings, do announcements, go to political representatives, go to their offices when they held veterans affairs and activities here in the greater Philadelphia area, and to announce our scholarship program, but also the availability of the other resources on campus to try to attract veterans into the program. So now we started to see some reaction in the early parts of the program. We signed up a number of veterans into our programs and got them back on track for their careers. Now, the other significant fact you need to be aware of is that in the greater Philadelphia area, we do have retain actually a significant manufacturing base. We have one of the largest groups of pharmaceutical manufacturing companies. We have a lot of metal trades. There's just a whole array of businesses in our region, and we saw that as a potential opportunity to look at transferring skills and from the military into jobs in the economy. And this is something we're familiar with. Back in the closing of the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, the consortium and our member colleges worked to translate the skills and do prior learning assessment for nearly 8,000 workers here in the Navy Yard, and to help them get resettled into our general economy, into our manufacturing base, and other areas. We found that the career pathway from military training and credentials was not clear to the one-stop providers, which in Pennsylvania we call career links, to many career counselors and even the veterans organizations. I mean, we went out and met with them, and we asked them, and we said, is there clarity around how to make these connections? And we found that that it wasn't clear. We also found that businesses weren't sure. We routinely would hear businesses say, we would love to hire veterans. We don't know where they are, and we don't know where their skills are. And earlier I mentioned we've done some career fairs and job fairs and things of that nature to try to make those connections. So we felt there was a need for some clarity around the skills and ability of the veterans. And everyone will talk about the ability to work in teams, take order, be responsible, and all of these other things. But we were very concerned that we weren't really taking advantage on behalf of the veteran of the technical skills they had. The other thing we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that we aligned an understanding of those skills and those job opportunities with education and training programs on our campuses. The consortium and our community colleges, like many of your community colleges, work extensively with business and industry. So we wanted to take advantage of those relationships and align those things and really create a way where counselors and one-stops and others could provide really good information to a veteran and better understanding how to translate their skills into a advanced manufacturing job, not just a manufacturing job. These are all high-skill-based programs. So we created VAM, the Veterans in Advanced Manufacturing. Now, this was really a partnership with CALE. And the person I worked with was Phyllis Snyder here in the Philadelphia area, and I've done a lot of work with Phyllis. We had done work, and I think CALE still has this, called the Biopharmaceutical Human Capital Infrastructure Report, where we mapped out the entire human capital infrastructure for the biopharmaceutical industry here in the greater Philadelphia area. And we sat down and I said, our real problem is this understanding of the pathway and of the translation of skills, and also how those skills can be recognized by our colleges through our prior learning assessment programs. And CALE was uniquely positioned to help us with this. So the study really consisted of looking at the military occupational specialty code, or the training model that a particular veteran participated in, and to see how that could be linked into an area of expertise that related to advanced manufacturing and our college-based program. And we created kind of a roadmap for, not specifically for the veteran. Many of the tools we create are best used in the hands of a counselor, a college counselor, a one-stop counselor, a veteran service like the multi-service center uses it, things of that nature. And we needed to understand how to kind of do a gap, or help the veteran understand where the gap may be, to make them better, more employable and better skilled, but also to understand what additional training may be needed in order to help them enter into a new occupation. Now, some of the programs we worked with, so for example, we have had a long-standing, a 10-year relationship with the Boeing Corporation, and in fact, we have created educational programs in partnership with Boeing for their incumbent workforce in certain specialized skill areas. And what we did is we said, something, we can bring that training model out to the external community. We can assist Boeing recruit, and we can also help them understand how their training program links up to military training through this course that is delivered through our college, our member college. And so what we did is we recruited veterans and counseled them and made sure that they knew they were eligible for funding for training, and that they had the opportunity to get a job inside the Boeing Corporation. And here in Leicester, Pennsylvania, they manufacture the helicopters. So some of the coursework was metal fabrication and composites, so very technically based courses, but one in which many of our veterans have great starter skills to get into. And so that's an example. Also, Acker Philadelphia Shipbuilding is another technical area where we were able to get people into metal trades. There are a couple of other areas. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has been funding what are called industry partnerships for about 8 years under Governor Ed Rendell. And they're groups of small companies that are predominantly manufacturing-based. We have one called the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership. And they're smaller companies where a veteran may be interested in working in a smaller, not a large corporate environment. And we're able to recruit those companies to look at some of the training models and the veterans in terms of stepping out. The other thing that we've been able to do, working with the power industry, is to understand there was a skill gap in existing incumbent workers who were veterans returning as reservists from active duty, and we're able to do things like get them certified in fiber optics, which is a really up-and-coming area in the region. But that had to do, again, with relying back on the VAM study and understanding where the skill sets were walking into this. So some of the examples hopefully will be helpful for you. We're doing a couple of other things, but let me continue on my slides so that I don't. So the industrial base here generally in the greater Philadelphia area is shipbuilding and repair, rotorcraft, as I mentioned, the defense industry, the biopharmaceutical industry, and then these small companies who serve as the supply chain for these major industries. I will mention we also have a very large medical care community and a large education community, too. We have about 88 colleges and universities in the region. But that wasn't, of course, part of the VAM study. So how have we done? Some of the work we've done, we've taken out, we've distributed the tool to all of our stakeholders so they can use and counsel veterans on these programs. We found that during the past 2 years, of course, the recession has suppressed hiring by manufacturers. We've just completed a survey of 95 manufacturers in the area, and we're very encouraged at the hiring plans, both within the next 6 and then up until the next 24-month period. We did this in partnership with one of the METs in the area. We found that we continue to do training and development and come up with innovative programs for the manufacturing industry, but the economy still creates some challenge. And we found companies are willing, and again, that study tells us it's going to start to pick up, so we're hoping we can even facilitate a greater transfer of knowledge and skill into manufacturing with our veterans. And the one thing is that I really have to emphasize this last line is it really requires constant management, the recruitment, the management of the veterans to help them navigate not only the educational system, but the employment system and the entry-level job or even advanced skill job level requires management. That's done on our campuses. Here at the consortium, we convene quarterly meetings of our stakeholder groups to discuss challenges. Also, we've funded some research into the barriers to entry for veterans who enter or don't enter our program, and to try to better understand how to remove those barriers and really help veterans re-enter kind of a career development program that includes both education, training, and job attainment, and that's really critical. But the one real issue is that is the presentation of the veteran from the Iraq and Afghan initiative. Talking to our Veterans Multi-Service Center, which has been in existence for some 40 years, only now are they starting to see veterans represented in their veterans population. And so there's a need really to continue to press out to have the veterans recognize, even if they access these services, to notify the one-stops, our colleges, and the centers that they return from Iraq and Afghanistan. And on a last note, we're doing a pilot program here. I'd just like to add this in here on one of our college campuses. Montgomery County Community College has opened up an entrepreneur center and a small business incubator, and we're currently exploring the opportunity to help veterans start businesses and move through the entrepreneurial stage of development once they have some business experience. And we have tried to be totally non-discriminatory on the direction that a veteran wants to go. I've personally said, yes, we're encouraging veterans in advanced manufacturing, but really if a veteran wishes to have a degree in English literature and become a poet, that's fine with me too. But we have tried to take advantage of some of the skill training in the military and help veterans get jobs, move into our general economy, and get back into a more normal life in our regional economy. So I want to thank you for the time to be able to speak today, and I'll be more than pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all of the presenters. Please, if you have questions, do type them in. On the left-hand side of your screen, you can see a discussion area, and we'd be happy to deal with some questions. I'm going to take the prerogative as the facilitator and ask the first question. And first, I would just like to say that I am very pleased that we could have such a variety of perspectives today. We heard from an individual institution. We heard from an overarching institute that focuses on institutions within an entire state. And then we heard from a consortium of institutions, 2-year and 4-year, focusing on one particular geographic area. We also had representation from a lot of different areas of the country, Texas, Indiana, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. And given that, there were a lot of commonalities that all of our presenters mentioned when they talked about their programs addressed to the educational needs of active military personnel and veterans. They talked about, for example, outreach, targeted programs, the support that these individuals need and are receiving in their programs, and the necessity of awareness awareness, having not only offices that have in the past focused on veterans, but the importance of having those offices focus on the needs of a special subgroup of veterans, but also having individual campuses as well as the larger community aware of the situation and of the fact that active military and veterans are returning to school. What the speakers didn't specifically mention but referred to is something that I would like to point out. As many of you know, CALE has a toolkit to help identify the challenges and strengths of institutions dealing with adult learners, and this is called our Adult Learner Focus Institution Toolkit, the ALFI Toolkit. One of the very important aspects of serving adult learners is helping them with transitions, helping them relate what came before in their academic career and in their learning experiences to what's going to come afterwards. And I was especially struck by listening to all the presenters with how the outreach to active military personnel and veterans exemplifies the importance of transitions, helping these people identify and use the skills that they have learned during their military experience with preparation for the future. And then, of course, the various programs that we talked about are helping link both the past and the future. And so to get to my question, finally, I would like to know for all of these programs, how do you evaluate success? What is it to say that your program is successful, and how will you measure that? And why don't we go in reverse order? Joseph, could you address that question first, please?
Yeah, sure. Our first level of, our first metric was really, and early on, again, this was 3.5 years ago, was really outreach, being able to gain access to a critical number of veterans, to begin to work with them to best understand what their needs were and how to create that veteran-friendly environment. Now, I'm going to talk about kind of process metrics. Then it was the establishment of the Veteran Center, and the various lockstep programs having centralized source of counseling and services for the veterans. And then we looked at enrollment and curriculum and scholarship approval rates. But on the direct training side, we looked at I would say successful completion with credential out of our non-credit programs and then employment. And so the metrics were fairly well laid out and fairly straightforward. And the part of the issue we had to deal with on the training models was program completion. And we've had actually pretty good success there, but we found that we had to put in some additional counseling to get people through those particular programs. So we really looked at some process measures and then at some outcome measures in terms of participation. On the college campus, since our tuitions don't pay for an entire associate's degree, the metric kept by the college separate and distinct from our program is degree completion. But that is not that's not a metric that we pull back into the consortium. We look at program completion through the scholarship, the funding through the scholarship program itself.
Great. Thank you very much. Sarah, could you address the question of evaluation, please?
Sure. All of our grant institutions complete an annual report for us, and they track things such as enrollment, retention, GPA, and then they submit those to us. So this last year, 2009-2010, was the first time we've had that report, so we've started a baseline. This coming year for 2010-2011, we'll have the same questions. So we're building this bank so we can go through and see how we're doing it and continue to measure our progress.
Great. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And Cindy, could you address that question too, please?
Absolutely. There's lots of different ways that we judge success. I guess the most macro way is to look at persistence to graduation? All right, are all the efforts that we're doing with our veterans and our military populations increasing the rate with which they reach their goals and they complete their degrees and they graduate? On a more micro level, we look at where they are when they come in terms of that initial assessment of preparedness for going to school, and when they complete the Project Persist, we're looking at the same thing. Where are they now? All right, when we talk to them, we're also giving them questionnaires. What's their level of satisfaction? When you look at all of those different pieces, it all goes back to, are they going to school? Are they staying in school? And are they graduating? And those are the kind of numbers that we're following.
Thank you very much. Cindy, while you are used to speaking, I'd like to ask you a question that we've had with relation to your program. Actually, two questions. Is the course in Project Persist online? And also, who pays for the 2 free classes? In other words, how is the program supported financially?
Okay, the first question is, yes, it is online and it's on ground. It's something that our military population tends to be heavier in the online modality. So as we're working on Project Persist, it is online and it will be on ground. In terms of who pays for it, okay, that's a really good question. What we're doing at the present time is we're working on several different grant proposals to help fund the program. However, if we don't have those in place by the time we're ready to start this in the next 6 months or so, we'll be supporting it ourselves. All right.
Okay.
Now, how can we do that, and why would we do that? I mean, now I want to put my marketing hat on, and that is that not only is this great for education and altruistic and wonderful, it also is going to be a really good marketing tool. All right. And we think that by doing this, we'll actually see a really good increase in numbers. And the final thing I would tell you is that I'm working on being able to deliver this on site here at Fort Sam Houston.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. That was a good addendum. I appreciate that. We have had several questions that unfortunately will take more time to answer than the 3 minutes that we have left. So I'll ask a question that we've received that has a quick answer, and that is directed to all of you, and it is staffing. How many staff members do you have working in these programs? And why don't we start with Sarah?
Thank you. Currently, we have 2 full-time outreach specialists, and then we have an outreach associate, and we divide the grant schools up pretty evenly so that we each have a caseload, and we work those schools directly.
Okay, thank you. Joseph, can you talk about the staff that you would have?
Certainly. We dedicated a program manager to do program oversight here, and then hired a veteran full-time to work on the project to do outreach. Then on each of our campuses, there's the head of the Veterans Office and then a support staff that also participate in our stakeholder meetings on a quarterly basis, but also help coordinate our programs. But we do draw on other personnel on the campuses as needed. And recently, we are beginning to change our strategy. We've helped transfer our on-site veteran into the Veterans Multi-Service Center, and we're providing some funds there to do outreach more through an existing veterans organization to try to push that out and connect all of my colleges to that outreach initiative. So we're really experimenting with that, and we're trying to support, staffing on-site at centers that are well recognized for veterans to provide service.
Thank you. And Cindy, how about staffing at University of the Incarnate Word?
Okay, we've got 1 full-time director of Veterans Affairs who acts as the coordinator of our Veterans Center. Right, we have 2 students who are paid for by the VA. We have 1 full-time VA advisor. We have another full-time military advisor. So that would be 5 full-time. We have a person who handles the computer. When you're talking about online programs with the military, they all have different processes and different portals you have to maintain. And then we have 1 person in admissions. So if I total all that up, we have 5 full-time folks and 2 students paid for by the VA.
Thank you very much. And this gives me an opportunity to thank everybody who participated today, the presenters plus all of you who listened to this presentation. It was great to have you join us. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to turn the mic over to Tracy Eckert, who's going to talk to us about the next step.
Again, thank you all for participating today. Just one quick reminder that we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, all of you that have registered will receive an email hopefully tomorrow, if not definitely on Monday, that will have a link to this webinar, so you'll have the audio and the slides. If there's any information you'd like to reference again or you need the contact information, anything like that, all of that will be provided in the slides. Thank you again. Everyone have a great rest of the week.
Goodbye.